Can't handle this pain. I can't take this. No, I can't give up. Not yet. Surely you can do better than this. Do you not remember what I told you long ago? To call on me. Should you tire of this charade? But don't worry. I'll take care of all this. I am the warrior of darkness. Burdened with the solemn duty to do what must needs be done, no matter the cost, the Dark Knight harnesses the very energies of the Abyss to ravage its foes and carve through enemy ranks with its massive sword. Prowling the streets of Ishgard, the Dark Knight stands ever ready to punish those who would trample over the weak and defenseless. Let's take a closer look at this shadowy anti-hero by first looking at its job-specific mechanics. As with the Paladin, the Warrior, and the Gunbreaker, the Dark Knight has a special ability that, when activated, increases the Dark Knight's enmity or aggro generation. This ability is called Grit, learned at level 10. Unlike past iterations, Grit no longer reduces damage when it is active. This effect has been transferred to the level 1 trait, Tank Mastery, which all 4 tanks have access to. Let's move on to the Dark Knight's job-specific gauge. This is the Blood Gauge. Upon gaining the level 62 trait, Black Blood, the Blood Gauge becomes available, allowing the Dark Knight to gain Black Blood points, a resource used by a couple of the Dark Knight's weapon skills, which we will examine later in the video. Blood points are earned primarily through the Dark Knight landing either its complete single target weapon skill combo, or its area of effect or AoE spell combo. Let's go over these combos now. Let's first go over the multi-target AoE combo first. The AoE combo for the Dark Knight is comprised of 2 spells. The first spell in this combo is Unleash, learned at level 6. Unleash is a straightforward attack that damages all nearby enemies. The follow-up spell in the combo, learned at level 72, is Stalwart Soul. In addition to dealing damage, Stalwart Soul also restores MP and generates 20 points of Black Blood as combo bonuses. Now let's go over the Dark Knight's single target weapon skill combo. Starting off, this weapon skill combo is Hard Slash, a simple level 1 weapon skill. Following up is the level 2 skill Siphon Strike. Siphon Strike does damage but also restores MP as a combo bonus. The final skill in this combo is Soul Eater, learned at level 26. As a combo bonus, Soul Eater generates 20 blood gauge points and restores the Dark Knight's HP. While these 2 combos generate blood gauge points, these points can in turn be spent to use any one of the following 2 weapon skills. The first is Blood Spiller, learned at level 62. Blood Spiller is a strong single target attack. This costs 50 gauge points. The second skill is Quietus, learned at level 64. Quietus is an AoE weapon skill that does moderate damage to any nearby enemies. Like Blood Spiller, this skill also costs 50 blood points. Both Blood Spiller and Quietus are affected by a certain ability which I will go over later. For now, let's wrap this segment up with one last spell, Unmend, learned at level 15. Unmend is a straightforward ranged offensive spell that also has increased enmity. Let's move on to the Dark Knight's abilities, starting with its offensive abilities. Let's start with the Blood Weapon ability learned at level 35. Blood Weapon places an effect on the Dark Knight that restores MP every time the Dark Knight lands a weapon skill or spell. Upon earning the enhanced Black Blood trait at level 66, Blood Weapon now also increases the blood gauge by 10 points for every weapon skill or spell landed on the enemy. At level 30, the Dark Knight learns Flood of Darkness, an AoE attack that damages all enemies in a straight line before the Dark Knight. Upon reaching level 40, the Dark Knight learns Edge of Darkness, a powerful single target attack. Both Flood and Edge of Darkness cost 3000 MP each to use. Furthermore, both these abilities grant the Dark Side effect for 30 seconds, up to a maximum of 60 seconds. Dark Side increases the Dark Knight's damage by 10% while under its effect. One last related note about these two abilities: when the Dark Knight earns the level 74 trait Dark Side Mastery, Flood of Darkness becomes Flood of Shadow, behaving in the same way, albeit becoming more powerful. Likewise, Edge of Darkness becomes Edge of Shadow, increasing its damage potency as well. Up next for the offensive abilities is Salted Earth, learned at level 52. Salted Earth creates a ground-based effect at a targeted location, damaging all enemies that enter it over time for 15 seconds. Plunge is up next, learned at level 54. Plunge is a gap closer that deals respectable damage. When the Dark Knight earns the enhanced Plunge trait at level 78, Plunge gains a charge every 30 seconds up to a maximum of 2 charges. This allows the Dark Knight to use the gap closer twice back-to-back for dishing out good damage, or one could be held for a handy gap closer when needed. At level 56, the Dark Knight learns Abyssal Drain, an AoE attack that also restores some of the Dark Knight's HP per enemy that's hit. Up next is Carven Spit, learned at level 60. Carven Spit deals a good amount of damage while also restoring some of the Dark Knight's MP. At level 68, the Dark Knight learns Delirium. While under Delirium's effect, both Bloodspiller and Quietus can be executed without cost. All weapon skills also restore MP throughout the effect's duration. The last of the offensive abilities is Living Shadow, learned at level 80. With this ability, the Dark Knight summons a shadowy ally to fight by its side for 24 seconds. The shadow cannot be directly controlled, but does contribute a decent amount of DPS for the Dark Knight. Now let's move on to the defensive abilities. Shadow Wall is up first, learned at level 38. This ability grants 30% damage mitigation to the Dark Knight for a short duration. The next ability is Dark Mind, learned at level 45. Dark Mind mitigates all magic damage the Dark Knight takes by 20%, also for a short duration. Now we come to the somewhat controversial ability, Living Dead, learned at level 50. While under Living Dead's 10-second duration effect, should the Dark Knight's HP be reduced to 0, the Dark Knight survives, albeit living on borrowed time, as the Walking Dead effect takes hold. While under this effect, the Dark Knight cannot be reduced to lower than 1 HP for 10 seconds. However, once the Dark Knight receives healing equivalent to 100% of its HP, the Walking Dead effect ends, which also ends the Unkillable effect. If the Dark Knight does not receive this amount of healing before Walking Dead's full duration expires, the Dark Knight itself expires. From the most controversial to the most universally praised, the next ability is the Blackest Night, learned at level 70. At the cost of 3000 MP, the Blackest Night creates a barrier around the Dark Knight or a friendly target that absorbs damage equal to 25% of the target's maximum HP. If the barrier absorbs its maximum amount of damage before its duration expires, the Dark Knight is given one free use of either Flood of Darkness or Flood of Shadow, or Edge of Darkness or Edge of Shadow. The final defensive ability is Dark Missionary, learned at level 76. Dark Missionary grants the Dark Knight and all nearby party members 10% magic damage mitigation. And now, I would like to share with you the opener I have been personally using. This opener is a slightly modified version of the Double Weave opener that can be found on the Balance Discord server, which will be linked in the video description for those of you who might be interested. Alright, let's get started. Okay, now to explain what I did. I start off the fight by using Provoke, which now generates enmity when used. I weave in the Blackest Night for mitigation and Blood Weapon for fast MP and blood generation. I next use Heart Slash to start my weapon skill combo, weaving in Edge of Shadow for some extra damage. I follow up with Siphon Strike. I finish the combo with Soul Eater, weaving in Living Shadow to summon my shadow to attack. I start my combo again with Hard Slash, weaving in Salted Earth and Plunge. Next I use Siphon Strike, weaving in Edge of Shadow for damage and Delirium to start my blood phase. I follow with Blood Spiller, weaving in Edge of Shadow and Carve and Spit for additional damage. I use Blood Spiller again, weaving in Edge of Shadow and Abyssal Drain. I use Blood Spiller for the third time, weaving in Plunge, and if able, weaving in Edge of Shadow before Plunge. I use Blood Spiller 2 additional times, which ends the blood phase. I finish up the combo I put on hold earlier with Soul Eater, which also ends my opener. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a thumbs up and sharing it with your friends, as it helps the channel out tremendously. It also lets me know whether you enjoy this type of content or not, and will help influence the type of content I create in the future. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel as well. Your support would be very much appreciated. Thank you again, and until next time, take care and have a great one.